Hey, what's up everybody? So today I'm going to give you 3 quick things you can learn from neurobiology. Neurobiology is a great area of study. The brain is an interesting, powerful, fascinating organ in your body, right? And so we want to learn how to use that well. We want to learn how to harness it. We want to learn how to bring more peace into our life. We want to decrease stress and anxiety. We want to increase the level of control in an uncontrollable world. So those 3 things are going to be this. We're going to talk about what neuroplasticity is. We're going to talk about what the 3 parts of the brain you have and what they do. And then we're going to talk really quickly about some attachment theory. So the first thing is to talk about neuroplasticity. It's this really interesting part of human biology where we used to think that if you formed a habit, it was done and solidified. But now what we know through brain science is the idea that your brain is actually more like plastic than it is like any other material, in that it's moldable. So when you make neural pathways in your brain, that's creating new habits. So you do something over and over and over again, it creates a new neural pathway. And then you kind of tend to do that thing when you experience similar conditions. So what you do as a kid to handle stress creates neural pathways. If you more often than not drank when you felt stressed, then as an adult you're probably going to do that. But knowing that we have neuroplasticity, we're actually able to, through habits, create or doing actions over and over and over again, we can create new neural pathways. So that's point number 1, the idea that your brain is moldable. The second part is that knowing how the brain kind of works. We have a kind of a 3-part brain, which I'm going to illustrate through this fist. It's a common example, so if you've seen this before, great. But it's basically this, that your brain is represented by this fist. Your cerebellum and your brainstem are represented here, and that's basically your reptilian brain, which is the part of the brain that reacts to flight or fight. When something crazy happens, it activates that fight or flight mode.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Wait.
Everybody calm down! Okay, we're trapped. Everyone for himself.
Okay,
let's go.
Procedure.
Stay alive. I'm getting help.
Use this surge of fear and adrenaline to sharpen your decision making.
The fire's shooting at us!
Help!
Oh my God!
You get more blood to the heart and more oxygen to the lungs. You're able to jump higher, run faster, do all these different things. And then the most important part of that process is the cool down, so that you have the gas pedal and then you have the brake pedal. So making sure you engage those well. And those who experience PTSD symptoms, maybe even you, or different traumas, they're stuck in that gas pedal zone. The next part of the brain, which is represented by the thumb, is the mammalian brain. This is the part of the brain that controls emotions and memory, and it's in this part of the actual physical brain. And it's this part of the brain that makes us want to be part of communities. It's this part of the brain that makes us desire to have romantic relationships and friendships and nights out.
Would you have sex with Meredith?
What?
Do you think she'd keep it quiet?
I'm gonna go to my desk.
Jim, it's not the horniness, okay? It's the loneliness. That's...
Okay, Dwight, grab your stuff. We're going to New York to party with Ryan and to meet girls.
Yeah!
Oh, yes. Count me in, dudes. I am in serious need of some bro time.
So they call it mammalian because mammals tend to want to be in herds, just like humans tend to want to be in communities, as we have found by forcing ourselves to isolate right now, right? More than ever, we want to be part of a community. That's this part of your brain. And finally, then you have the top part of the brain that wraps over. This is the top part of your brain and kind of covers it. This is your intellect, will, and your reason. This is what makes you, basically, our ability to think and to reason and to make moral judgments.
All right, who else is here? Pam and Jim are on their honeymoon, so there's not the usual balance between sane and others. Toby has mentally checked out since June. It's a very dangerous time. The coalition for reason is extremely weak.
And this is what makes us human, right? That's why they call it the human brain, because no other animals experience guilt the way that we do. No other animals make moral choices the way that we do. And so that is kind of part of the human brain. Now, if you have flipped your lid, in a sense, you might be acting purely on emotions, or you might be purely acting on fight or flight instincts. So when we're trying to ask ourselves, what are the new neural pathways we want to make? How do we want to reform and reshape our brain that's more like plastic? We want to have everything in order so that we're engaging this top part of the brain. If you're in fight mode, then you really you're not able to make clear decisions. So that's where you want to do like EMDR, or maybe some just talk therapy or some trauma therapy. You might be overly engaged in your emotions and be flooded with memories. And so we want to kind of talk that out. And so then once we have re-engaged the intellect, reason, and will, you're able to make new neural pathways in the best way possible. And finally, the last thing to kind of understand is your attachment style. Attachment style is something that kind of gained a lot of popularity a few decades ago. And it's basically the idea that the way that you interact with mom and your parents as you're growing up states how you're going to look at the world and interact with other relationships. And it can help you understand why you might not be having the relationships you want to have. It might help explain why you're either needy or why you're very resistant or why just everything's chaotic. So there's typically 4 attachments. Number 1 is secure, and then there's 3 anxious attachments. Anxious avoidant, anxious fearful, or anxious disorganized. So what you have with anxious avoidant is typically when your parents were really intense and yelled at you and were really mean. You tend to want to withdraw. Parents mean lots of upset feelings and stress, and so you tend to withdraw and go away from them. You tend to have a more positive view of yourself and a negative view of the world. Having a negative view of the world suggests that you're not really into relationships. You tend to rely on yourself almost to an extreme, and that's not really what you want for healthy relationships. Anxious fearful tends to be when your parents may have been a little bit more violent, unpredictable, and so you tend to be unpredictable. You don't trust yourself and you don't trust the world. It's just everything's like over here, over there. You just like, spurt on really quickly. And then anxious disorganized is when your parents may have been hot and cold, or they may have given you a lot of attention, then no attention. They had really high expectations of you, and that if you didn't perform to the top of your ability, they would be very disappointed in you. And the consequence of that is you tend to be very clingy and very needy, that you're always looking to get attention and to win somebody's attention because you never got that as a child. And so that can be, how that comes out in relationships. You tend to have a negative view of yourself and a more positive view of others. Like, I am bad, and if others would like me, then that would be okay. Then there's secure attachment, and that's simply when your parents were there for you, they provided for you, food was available, a house was available. This doesn't mean that your parents were perfect. It doesn't mean that they never reprimanded you, but it means that it was all out of love, and you especially saw your parents fight and then saw how they got back together. And that no matter what, even if hard times come, even if fights come, then there is healing to come later, and that everything will be okay at the end.
What, so you drove clear across town?
Yes, you want to go to the route I took so you can criticize that too? Who's in there?
I'm busy.
Backyard.
Are you out of your mind?
Let's go. I'll let you choose the most direct route.
Are Mom and Dad getting a divorce?
What are you talking about?
They're really mad at each other.
Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine.
How do you know?
Look, it used to scare me too, but they just have a way of working things out.
How?
I don't know. They just do.
But how?
How do I say this so you understand? Shut up!
I love how you send the boys to their room just so we can have some alone time.
I just love you.
It's my sandwich.
You know, I wouldn't give up a single one of them.
There are boys. No one else can say that.
So those are your kind of 3 things: neuroplasticity, the 3-part brain, your attachment style. If you understand your attachment style and where you are, then you can kind of work on forming new attachments, right? Because we know that through neuroplasticity, you can reshape your brain. So if you didn't have a great attachment style that you're upset with, then you can create new ones. But then the other thing is, if you're not in the right state of your human brain, then you might not be ready to start entering into that. So you want to make sure that you don't have any traumatic symptoms, or you want to first get to a level playing field where you're not always anxious, and then maybe look at some of your attachments. And then as we do that, now we can start being more purposeful and meaningful with the choices that we make, with the habits that we have, and in doing so can live in a more stress-free world, in a world that's very stressful. I'm Matthew Tuszynski. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and like the video.